In Chicago, after an armed robbery like this, are the cops even able to pursue? Not at high speeds. Are the cops able to chase on foot if they think they see this individual? Probably not. They've changed so many of the rules in recent years. And in fact, they just had the governor, Pritzker, who, looks like what would have happened to all of us if the COVID lockdowns had been extended for about a decade and all we could do was watch Netflix and eat Cheetos. Pritzker signed this Safety Act that lowers incarceration time for people. That is essentially meant to make it harder for cops to do their jobs and make it easier for criminals to get away with what they're doing. I had told you I would get into this, the issue here of crime and policing, because I have not seen the kinds of changes that we should see at this point, given what has happened nationally and in major cities with regard to major crimes and the issues pertaining to law enforcement. And you may have seen, this is getting a lot of attention because it's on video now with these Ring cameras. I mean, there's cameras everywhere these days. We all carry cameras. It is interesting to me that we are in a virtual surveillance state already. There's video of stuff going on all over the place all the time. We all carry cameras on us. We have instant connectivity, instant ability to call the police. And there's more cameras now than there has ever been in the history of the world. So you would think that it would be a lot easier to bring down crime, right? When you add the technological component into this, think about what it was like. I had mentioned, say, the Death Wish movies with Charles Bronson on the show, I think a few weeks back. And not my favorite action films by a long shot. I mean, they're okay. But they really captured the psyche of the moment because people felt like in cities they were constantly unsafe. And they were, and the numbers showed that in places like New York in the 70s, really all the way through into the late 90s. But if you saw a crime happen, you would have to find a way. First of all, you weren't able to video it. There wasn't likely to be any actual video of the event unless maybe you were at a convenience store or some location that for security reasons had installed the camera. Now there are cameras all over the place. But you would have had to run in the pre-cell phone era, I guess, find a payphone, dial 911. Technology should have made a lot of this, and has made, I would argue, a lot of this much easier. Yet we still see places, notably like Chicago, where the crime situation is something that they just cannot get it under control. Even though we have better comms, they have better analysis and technology and tracking than ever before. There's this video of a robbery victim named Diana DiGiacomo in Chicago. And here she describes what you might have seen this video. It was up on Fox. We can put it up on clayandbuck.com. Just you see broad daylight, woman walking her dog. Some guy just gets out of his car, runs up to her, sticks a gun in her face. Here's what she says happened. Play 18.
Having a gun shoved like right here. And he's holding it sideways like this.
Staring down the barrel of a gun, DiGiacomo was almost too stunned to be scared until...
Then when he pointed at the dog, I was like, okay, just whatever you want, take it.
The entire exchange lasts just 11 seconds.
He just grabbed my purse and ran. And I just thought, okay, I just got away with my life and my dog's life.
Think about the mentality of this individual. You're running up to someone's grandmother, pointing a loaded weapon at her, threatening to murder her, and also point a weapon just for the additional emotional impact of this woman who is facing possible execution in broad daylight. This is in the Lincoln Park area of Chicago. This is a fancy neighborhood in the street. And points the gun at her dog, too. Points the gun at her dog just to really bring home the terror. And then I believe they went through her purse, found her car keys. I suppose they had surveilled her before this, and then went and stole her car as well. That was what they were really after. This is an individual who should be taken, the perpetrator of this crime should be taken out of society for decades, at a minimum, right, should have to pay a very serious price. And yet, will that happen in Chicago? Well, in Chicago, after an armed robbery like this, are the cops even able to pursue? Not at high speeds. Are the cops able to chase on foot if they think they see this individual? Probably not. They've changed so many of the rules in recent years. And in fact, they just had the governor, Pritzker, who, looks like what would have happened to all of us if the COVID lockdowns had been extended for about a decade and all we could do was watch Netflix and eat Cheetos. Pritzker signed this Safety Act that lowers incarceration time for people. That is essentially meant to make it harder for cops to do their jobs and make it easier for criminals to get away with what they're doing. This stuff doesn't seem to change in these cities. They don't seem to care about what the real impact will be. I take you now to New York City, where they have, as of today, a settlement filed filed today is going to stop NYPD officers, according to the New York Times, from detaining people at length as they check databases for reasons to arrest. At length, they don't hold them for that long. This means, let me tell you what this is, okay? Cops, if they stop somebody, if they think that somebody is in the commission of a crime, and they think somebody might be selling drugs, carrying a weapon, they're allowed to go up and speak to them, and they can ascertain who this individual is. If they have an articulable suspicion that they are committing a crime, there's some reason for them to talk to them. And then it has been common practice for the cops to go, all right, well, since we're in a conversation and I think something was a little bit off here, I am going to just run to see if you have any outstanding warrants. That's all. Any outstanding warrants. This is about as much of an infringement on someone's time and rights and psychology as, you get pulled over. A cop says, I think you swerved a little bit in the lane there. They pull you over. They ask for your license and registration. They run it and they come back. They hand you back your card. And if there's no problem, there's no problem. This has happened to me. I just got pulled over down here in Florida. It was a license plate thing, a registration issue. It was nothing. The cop and I talked for a second. I was very polite. He said, sir, I can't really see your plate with where it is. Can you fix it differently? We just talked. But he wanted my license. He went back to his car. He checked it out, came back, fine, went about my way. I don't find this to be some egregious, horrible abuse of police authority. He had a reason to stop me. He told me what the reason was. I understand the reason. We addressed the issue, went about my way. Law enforcement has to have some ability to do these things, right? There has to be some ability to stop and talk to people and ascertain what a situation is. If we're just going to have it, oh my gosh, felony in progress is the only thing a cop is allowed to intervene on, we're in really bad shape. But what this new agreement in New York says is that a cop can no longer, if they stop you because they think you have a gun in your waistband, right? Let's just say that's what they stop and they talk to you. And then they say, all right, I'd like to see some ID. They can't then go and run a check to see if you have any outstanding warrants. Who is this keeping safe exactly? I mean, what is really the purpose of this change in the rule? Well, as we know, what they're saying is that this is discriminatory, that the cops who do this are racist, and yet when you look at what the impact will be to the whole of New York City, there are certain areas that have much higher crime than others. Those areas are disproportionately minority areas of the city, particularly black and Hispanic majority areas of New York. I know this very well. I worked for the NYPD Intelligence Division. And so the people most likely to suffer from serious crime are, in fact, the over 99% of residents of these areas who are predominantly black and Hispanic, who commit no crimes, who just want to live their lives. But they're the ones, they're law-abiding Americans, and they're the ones who suffer because left-wing libs and the ACLU are constantly finding new ways to make it harder for police to do their jobs. One of the biggest benefits of broken windows policing, which people talk about less now than they used to, but because of its success, it was considered a gold standard approach to turning a city around. Because of the approach where you enforce the laws at all levels, you know what happens? The person who jumps the classic example is the person who jumps the turnstile, which now, as you know, they even considered some policy in New York where they were going to change the turnstiles to make it harder because people are just jumping turnstiles all over the place again. That, graffiti, drug use in the streets, this is the decay, the urban decay that just compounds and makes everyone less safe, makes businesses pull out, makes people feel like they got to live somewhere else. This is how it happens. And yet, if you actually enforce laws about things like turnstile jumping, what you find is you grab the person who jumped the turnstile, you check them for warrants. That is, in many cases, going to be the person you are looking for who is wanted on an attempted murder charge and is part of a gang, who's wanted on a rape charge or on a sexual assault charge, or any number of serious felonies. But that interaction with police allows for the incarceration and then the facing of the justice system for the people who are committing these crimes. It's very straightforward. Stop, question, and frisk. They call it stop and frisk, but it's actually stop, question, and frisk is the way the policy was implemented. They got rid of that in New York. Has that made New York safer? Well, since they're going to say it's not causation, it's correlation. Yeah, sure. Since they've gotten rid of it, New York has gotten much less safe. There's far more criminality. But, it was a discriminatory practice, they said. It was wrong. It was unconstitutional, all this kind of stuff. And we say, all right, well, now people suffer. Now people suffer from more gunshots, more stabbings, more robbings, more rapes, more assaults, more car theft, more burglary, all of that. You know what Democrats say in response to all this? It's a price we have to pay. Social justice means no actual justice in these cities. It means the justice system is completely limited in what it's able to do. And it's undermined at every turn. And the libs don't care. They don't care. They think this is the price we have to pay for a more equitable society. And I think that's such a perverse view of it. Because as I've said, you have, even in the highest crime neighborhoods of any American city, it is, if you're talking about a predominantly, let's say a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood, which is what you get in the South Bronx in New York, in places like Bed-Stuy is now transitioned to a kind of a hip place, but Brownsville, East New York, places out in Brooklyn and Queens, where there's much higher crime rates. The people living there are living there and they're not committing crimes. It is less than 1% of these communities that are committing the crimes, and they're mostly committing the crimes against their neighbors and the other people who live there. And so higher crime rates disproportionately affect minorities in high crime neighborhoods, who are the very people that Democrats in safe neighborhoods, I'm talking now mostly or predominantly white Democrats in safe neighborhoods of major cities, pretend to care about. The Nancy Pelosi effect. Nancy Pelosi knows nothing about what it is to be a person who is working class, who is struggling in a high crime neighborhood, and she doesn't care. She cares about whether she gets put on the cover of Vanity Fair and MSNBC talks about what a hero she is for social justice. Same thing with Chuck Schumer. Same thing with AOC. None of these people live in dangerous neighborhoods. They have no idea what it is to be worried about their safety. I know some of you say, oh, look at Nancy Pelosi, what happened to Paul Pelosi, to which I say, yeah, where is the body cam footage, by the way? Have you seen it yet? I haven't seen it yet. I'm just curious. I would like to see the footage, because we would see the footage in any other serious police incident, wouldn't we? Seems a little weird, doesn't it? Seems a little weird.